McLaren Racing F1 team are one of the longest-serving teams still operating in Formula 1, having made their full racing debut at the 1966 Monaco Grand Prix. McLaren are a team with a rich history in Formula 1, having entered a total of 866 races and having, to date, achieved 182 race victories. McLaren have experienced both the euphoric highs and crushing lows of Formula 1 throughout their existence in the sport. They've experienced periods of dominance, and equally, they've battled through times where they struggled to get out of Q1. McLaren is one of the purest representations of the rollercoaster ride of emotions that is Formula 1, one of the most senior bastions of the dogged grit and determination to get through thick and thin that makes Formula 1's teams, drivers, and ruthless competition so special. They've managed to weather every storm that the years have thrown at them, in the process building an extremely resilient machine that, despite numerous setbacks, just manages to keep chugging along. However, it's not always been like this. In very recent years, in fact, McLaren have had to undergo a somewhat extreme and wholly fundamental change to their racing division in an attempt to steady their decline. The McLaren-Honda years of 2015 to 2017 at McLaren were some of the bleakest that the team has ever seen, at times seeming relatively under control, and at others, the future of the entire team was called into question. For McLaren, the relatively short period between 2015 and 2017 were a collection of years that left the team with serious soul-searching to do if they were ever going to be able to truly restore themselves to the position as one of the most successful Formula 1 teams in history. In order to fully understand McLaren's reinvention, however, it is first important that we are fully aware of the position that the team were in both prior to and coming into the first days of the turbo-hybrid V6 era. During the late 2000s and early 2010s, it's safe to say that McLaren were at one of their highest points in the sport. They'd given Lewis Hamilton a car with championship-winning potential in 2007 and his first World Championship in 2008, challenging at points for the Constructors' Championship in both 2008, 2010, 2011 and 2012. However, despite the team's strength and success during this era, symptoms of underlying weakness from within the team would begin to show. These relatively triumphant years were interspersed with occasionally worryingly high numbers of reliability issues and DNFs. And while this was seemingly nothing to worry about given the inherent pace of the car, it began to expose the fact that McLaren may have fundamental weaknesses with both their car and team structure that could prevent the continuation of this success. While at the time this was of no particular cause for concern, with the benefit of hindsight we can now see that McLaren was balancing precariously on a knife edge, one major change away from severe negative ramifications. During the early 2010s, McLaren's confidence and bravado had begun to crack, and it was now only a matter of time until the castle began to crumble. Arguably the first major step towards McLaren's eventual downfall was Lewis Hamilton leaving the team for the 2013 season in order to join Mercedes. Only following his departure in 2014, however, was the significance of his impact upon the team fully realised. In a seat where, in the previous season, Lewis Hamilton managed to score 190 points, his replacement Sergio Perez was only able to score 49 in his first and only season with the team. Hamilton's departure had evidently left a huge performance gulf within the team, and with an ageing Jenson Button in the second seat, McLaren began to drop back in the constructors' standings. This was the beginning of a downfall which at one point may have seemed impossible, but became reality as the team dropped from 3rd to 5th in the Constructors' Championship, failing to score a single point in the entire season for the first time since 1980. Following the major change of Lewis Hamilton leaving the team after 6 years loyal service, McLaren's uncertainty regarding driver lineup was extended to the fundamental direction of car development and team leadership, as it was announced that McLaren would be parting ways with engine supplier Mercedes for the 2015 season, with team principal of over 5 years Martin Whitmarsh also leaving halfway through 2014. Perhaps quite understandably, McLaren was subsequently on the back foot throughout the 2014 season, and despite a promising start where the team achieved a double podium at the first race, they were unable to replicate this initial promise as the season went on, and new driver Kevin Magnussen alongside Jenson Button could only manage minor points finishes for the remainder of the season. In their last year with the Mercedes power unit, McLaren would again struggle to 5th place in the Constructors' Championship, further cementing their position as a rocky midfield team. Another organisation falling victim to instability of management and investment, and one who, considering previous precedent, it was not unreasonable to expect to go lower. This prophecy would ultimately prove to come true in 2015. With their first season using Honda engines and having replaced Kevin Magnussen with Fernando Alonso, the team's fortunes would take a fairly dramatic turn for the worse. The team would end the season 9th in the Constructors' Championship, having collected only 27 points throughout the season, and with 12 total DNFs between the two drivers, the unreliability and lack of power of the Honda engine proved to be a fatal flaw for the McLaren car and its hopes for the season. However, while Honda's troubles were certainly a significant factor of McLaren's downfall, they were far from the sole cause that they were often made out to be. As a result of their success of previous years, McLaren were understandably confused at the reason for their recent undoing, and conflicted about the ways to remedy it, feeling therefore compelled to reflect the issue solely onto the inefficacy of the Honda engine. This resulted in a culture within the team which meant that it was unwilling to accept equal responsibility for their poor performance, and as such was therefore largely reluctant to attempt to fix it themselves. Despite a slight uptick in form during 2016, when McLaren were able to fairly consistently challenge the likes of Toro Rosso for the lower midfield positions and would go on to finish 6th, the persistence of DNFs and other problems pertaining to raw engine power continued. Following the slightly improved form, however, 2017 would mark another major low for the team despite the revitalised lineup of the experienced veteran Fernando Alonso alongside GP2 champion Stoffel Vandoorne. They would finish the season again in 9th, having achieved just 30 points, showing that despite the progress made during the 2016 season, they were now firmly a backmarker team, and as the DNFs continued to roll in, McLaren were desperately in need of an organisation-wide change, as their future within the sport began to be called into question. This is where we come to the revolution of McLaren F1 team. The extreme and sometimes painful reorganisation of the team was one of the most radical and ambitious team shake-ups for a generation, and aimed to restore McLaren into competitiveness in the near future. Under Zak Brown's leadership following his appointment to CEO in early 2018, McLaren was forced to adapt, something which aimed to reverse one of the fatal flaws of the organisation, the attitude of the team whereby Honda would be blamed for the team's problems at every opportunity. This resulted in the team becoming unwilling to change and innovate, as it believed that Honda was solely to blame for the issues that the team were facing. McLaren began to reorganise this under the refreshed leadership, approaching Renault to supply them with engines for the 2018 season onwards, ending the relationship with Honda and the blame culture of the team. The improvement marked by the Renault engine was almost immediately shown in 2018, as despite a slightly lacklustre end to the season, the team were once again lower midfield contenders, ending the season in 6th place in the championship and more than doubling their total points tally from the 2017 season to 62. The change to Renault engines was just the first of a collection of major steps taken to ensure the team's continuation within the sport, and preceded in 2019 both major management and driver lineup changes. Technical director Tim Goss and racing director Eric Bouillet left the team to make way for James Key and Andrea Stella respectively, and both Fernando Alonso and Stoffel Vandoorne were replaced with promising drivers Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. This extreme upheaval of almost every aspect of the team, including the team principal role, which was taken by Andreas Seidel prior to the start of the 2019 season, exhibits a fundamental ethos change within McLaren and is a far cry from the previous days of refusal to take accountability for any problems. The future of McLaren would continue to look bright both internally as well as externally as the 2019 season ran its course, and McLaren finished in 4th, again doubling their points tally, this time from 62 to 145. This showed the truly remarkable extent of McLaren's meteoric rise over the past few years, and acted as a statement of intent for McLaren. They were going to soon become an extremely competitive team once again. This further emphasised that they had left behind the days of being uncompetitive alongside Honda and were firmly heading towards the front of the grid. McLaren's significant improvement would continue alongside significant goals during 2020, as the team set their sights on finishing 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, a goal which, while at the time seeming ambitious and considered by many to be somewhat unachievable considering the performance of competitors Racing Point, McLaren sealed 3rd at the last race of the season, beating their primary opponents by just 7 points. The fact that McLaren were able to set and achieve such ambitious goals in such a short time since they were regularly placing outside the points is a lasting testament to the team's inherent strength and reliance. The modern McLaren team, particularly as they look to be especially quick so far in 2021, aim to continue the positive trajectory of the last few seasons for many years to come. McLaren's future is looking bright. In just a few short years, they've gone from fighting at the back to being podium contenders on a fairly regular basis, and could potentially even challenge for wins if they manage to carry their strength into the major 2022 regulation changes. McLaren's revolution has been one of the most radical in history, and while its positive effect upon the team has been profound considering the extremely short timescale, the progress that it will continue to bring into the future is still far from over. The McLaren revolution has seen one of the largest organisation-wide turnarounds in not only the history of Formula One, but also in the entirety of sport as a whole. McLaren has undergone the type of change in a handful of years that some teams in F1 are still yet to complete in decades in the sport. McLaren is the embodiment of a team that is forward-thinking and unafraid to force radical change for the benefit of both the team and the competitive nature of Formula One. McLaren has sped through all the stages of a typical F1 team's life cycle in the last half-decade, from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows and back again. McLaren were, not too long ago, very much considered as underdogs. But it is underdog success stories like these that make F1 so special. And while McLaren may not have won a world championship since 2008, they've certainly won in that regard.